Hi, I'm Amanda from Spark Spur Custom Creations. I want to take a minute to thank you for your support. Whether you're a friend, a family member, or someone who found me on Facebook, I appreciate you. And if you haven't already, please like and follow Spark Spur's Facebook page. Be sure to react to, comment on, or share any posts or reels that come up on your feed. It's tough for small businesses to beat the algorithm, especially when there's not much interaction with the content. Please don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions or concerns as you go through this tutorial. Enjoy! Okay, we're going to start by taking inventory of everything that you should have in your kit. So you should have two kind of interestingly shaped pieces that are smaller, and then one that's bigger. It kind of reminds me of a river, I guess. There are three pieces that will be part of the church. There is a door, there is a wreath and a bow. There are three windows. Two of them are smaller, and there's one that's bigger. There's a big star. There are two rectangles that have angles on each end. Those are the roof of the church. You have the steeple of the church. You have the words, "O, Holy, and Night." Watch for losing small pieces. That would be the dot to the I of night is very small. The comma that goes after O is also pretty small. And then also there are 12 of these smaller stars. The actual design only has 8 or 9. So there are a few extras in here in case you lose a couple or there's anything wrong with any of them. If you're going through your kit and there is a piece missing, please make sure you send me a message. I'm happy to make sure that you get that. And then, of course, there's also the large piece that will hold the snowy part of the scene. So we're going to start by laying everything out and make sure that it fits where it belongs. Clearly, I've already painted everything here. So that would probably be the first step, of course, is to go ahead and paint everything. If you really wanted to get fancy, since we're not in the workshop anymore, you could paint the backer a different color, maybe like a dark blue or a gray, and then you could even stain the church if you have stain and you would rather do something like that. The sky is the limit, and there's not a right or wrong way to do this. The colors that come with your kit are kind of just basic colors. Of course, you are welcome to just use those basic colors, but I would also encourage you to experiment with making different shades of colors if you're into that kind of thing. So use some gray or some white or some black to make the base colors brighter or lighter or darker, depending on what your preferences are. You definitely do not need to color things the same way that I have them. This is just what I chose to do. Also, these are not the same colors that you have in your kit, and this is actually not the same size as your kit. This is actually a custom order that I need to put together, so it is convenient that it was already painted and ready to go. So I'm going to focus on assembling for you. All right, so the first thing is to make sure you have all your pieces and that they're going to be laid out where you want them to be on your backer. So I'm going to kind of move all these to the side for now. And the very first thing that I do, you'll notice that your backer is finished on both sides. Take a minute to look through there and see which side you want to use. So there's not a right or a wrong answer to that. It might be one side might have a weird part of the grain that you don't like or that you do like. There's also not a right or wrong way in terms of which direction the grain goes. Sometimes I have the grain going vertically. Sometimes I have the grain going horizontally. It really just kind of depends on the way the backer looks, the way the wood works. So in this particular case, this back has kind of some lines going through it from where it was created that aren't great. And then it's kind of got this weird part of the grain here. I think I'm going to stick with this side here. And then within that, you can actually decide, you know, this big piece of grain here, I may not necessarily like that. And if that's the case, then I would put that on the bottom, because the design of the snowbank on the bottom will cover that. Really, again, there's not a right or wrong way to do it, and it's not going to be super noticeable once you have it all put together. So kind of keep those things in mind. If you don't watch video tutorials very often, I'll give you a couple of tips real quick before we dive into it. Feel free to press pause anytime. If I'm moving faster than what you're ready for and you need a minute to catch up, just push pause. And then you can push play again when you're ready to move on. If you didn't catch something that I said, go back 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds and listen to it or watch it again to catch what you need. And again, if you have any questions while you're working on this, please don't hesitate to reach out. You have my email, you have my Facebook page, you have my text, my phone number, for example. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm really happy to help. So laying out, this part goes at the bottom, this frame for the base. You don't have to get really technical about it right now, because we're not going to glue it down. We're just making sure that everything fits where we want it to. Obviously this part is just kind of like a puzzle, right? So you're going to put the pieces in where they fit. All right, so the other thing about wood pieces, if you haven't done much with wood before, very rarely is the wood totally flat. So either your backer is probably going to be bent, or the actual wood itself probably is bent, and so there will be some play to it, and you kind of have to keep that in mind when you glue down. Make sure you hold it long enough that it stays stuck down, right? So once you have this down, the defining feature for helping you lay everything else out is in this piece that goes to the church. So if you look, this piece has this kind of notch down here at the bottom. And we're going to use that to help place this side of the church on the backdrop. So right in this crook between where I have this white piece and this kind of blue-gray piece is where this part of the church is going to fit. And it feels weird because it looks like it's tilted to the side and your church is going to be hanging off to the right. And that's part of why I want to lay this all out first before we glue, is in case it does look like that, we can shift the way that the bottom sits, right? We can move one side higher if we need to. So we'll work on that as we get the rest of this in here. So the next piece that I do is the church, the main part of the church, and that's going to go right next to that side. And then we have the right side of the church. All right, so now that we have that on there, I think that's okay. Let's look at the rest of, let's put the rest of it together and see how we feel about it. So I'm going to put on the steeple next, which is this piece. And then the two parts of the roof. So the angled parts are the parts that go up against the church. All right. We've got the door. We probably don't technically need to put that in for the layout, but just for the sake of making sure we've got all the pieces we need. That's on there. We've got the wreath and the bow. It does not matter if you put the bow on the bottom or on the top. Not a right or wrong way to do it necessarily. Totally up to you. For the windows, there are two different sizes, as I mentioned, and really what I have to do is put them all on top of each other and then figure out which one is which. So these two are the smaller one, and this one is the bigger one. So the smaller ones go down in the bottom here. You can remember that because there are two of them and there are two sides. And then the bigger one goes up top. There's not a one right place to put the wreath either, so you can move it up or down depending on where you want everything to go. And then the rest is the words. And for me personally, this is one of the trickiest parts. I have a hard time with this, which is why I lay it all out first to make sure it's going to fit where I want. Especially with the big star that's in here. So the best thing to do is just kind of rough it all out, and it's kind of tricky because some of the parts, so my backer down here is warped a little bit. So that kind of fits in there. I feel like the holy is too close to the night. Move this over a little bit. And make that a little straighter maybe. And it's important that I make sure I have room for this big star. And that's kind of the first time I made this, I kind of ran into some trouble with that. All right. So the comma goes after the O. Still got the dot to my I. Good news. And then these other stars, there's not a right or wrong place to put them. If you want to put all 12 stars on there, you certainly can. And you don't have to during this dry run layout. You don't have to put them all on there. Sometimes I do just to kind of have a plan where I want them to be, so that I'm not overthinking it later. Because I just want to overthink it right now. Okay. So, and this is a situation if you did feel like you wanted things to move one way or another. As I mentioned, now is the time you could do that. If you want to see what it looks like, you know, what if I put move it to the right and up the circle some? What does that do to the church over here? And you can kind of make those adjustments. That kind of makes it a little more upright. You just really have to make sure that it follows the contour of the bottom of the snowbank hill, because that's where it kind of gets weird if it doesn't line up correctly. But I think I'm good with that. So then the next step would obviously be gluing. The glue that you have with your kit is in a little, one of the little paint pots, and it has a G on the top for glue. And there's also a glue brush in there along with it. So I recommend just dipping your glue brush into the pot to get a little bit of glue on it, and then just lightly brushing it on the back. The great thing about this glue is that it dries totally clear. So even if it does glop out the side or you drop some somewhere else, it's not going to show up in the finished version. Another benefit to the glue is it's not super glue. So you have a few seconds, more than a few seconds, to move things around after you put them down. If it's not quite where you wanted it to be, if you want to align the windows a little better, that's okay. And since it dries clear, it's not going to leave any lasting effects. So we'll glue it all down, get everything finished, and that's the painting takes the longest part, right? And then the gluing takes the next longest part. The finishing parts would be, I use finishing like a sealer. It is in the spray paint section, and I will add a picture of it here so you can see it. I spray several light coats of that on. It dries between each coat, and really it just protects it from the elements or spills or whatever, and also kind of brightens up the colors a little bit to kind of make them pop. And then for a hanger on the back, I am including some twine with your kit. And the best thing to do is wait until you have everything glued down, so that you can better eyeball where everything should go. Kind of eyeball the middle of your sign, and then also you can obviously use a ruler. So the sign is just a hair under 12 inches. And so you can kind of look around 6 inches and kind of use that. Some people will use a single loop where it is kind of together at the bottom and then makes a loop through the top. Some people prefer to use something that's more like a picture hanger where it's really close to the back. Some people like so that the bottom of it is kind of spread apart a little bit. But I would use hot glue if you have it to hot glue that to the back, or the glue that you have in your kit should also work. Just make sure that you have saturated the twine enough that it's really stuck well to the back, to the back or to the round wood, and give it enough time to really dry well, and maybe even do that twice just to make sure it's stuck on there. And that's it. Like I said, if you have any questions as you are putting this together, please don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you and your support of my small business, and I hope to see you at a workshop in the future.